rad people out there from whatever rad time you're watching in whatever rad place. You know the drill. I'm Ryan.
And I'm David.
And we are R-A-D Rad.
Rad. Get rad with us, people.
Rad in the house. Here
Get
we
rad
go.
in the
Super rad.
Yo, Ryan,
Well,
I got to ask, dude. I had this crazy statistic that I'm very curious about. And I'm curious what your prediction might be. But, dude, how many hours have you been in front of a computer? I mean,
you mean like today? Well, like how many hours have we been awake?
oh, okay. Good one. How many hours have I been awake for today?
Yeah, let's call it 10.
10?
So of those 10 hours, I would put 8 of them behind the screen.
Oh, snap. Dude, like, I feel like my eyeballs are going to be, popping out soon at any moment now, you know? And it kind of makes me think, am I a computer addict these days, right? Because, like, some people say there's, like, gaming addicts and they have to be in front of the screen all the time. But am I, like, do I have a screen addiction today? I don't know.
You know, I can't help but wonder since I've had a cell phone, like if that's not the case. I mean, every time I get a notification, you know, it's so automatic to just go boom, reach for your pocket and look at that phone, right? And I question all the time, like, is that a healthy behavior? I don't know.
Yeah. You know,
I can't help but feel like that's probably very common. Like, I mean, I don't think that we're the only people who are suffering from it.
No, absolutely not. And I've read a few books on addiction, and I'm very welcomed to have two of my soon-to-be former students join here. Can I now present Mr. Jacobo Rodriguez and Nicolas Cardenas?
Hey.
Welcome, boys and girls. Whoa, boys. Wow, I was about to say boys and girls like a classroom, but I don't see any girls. My goodness, yeah.
No, teacher. What's that class addiction? Teacher, relax.
Yeah.
No.
Just before, Ryan and I, we were talking about how to define addiction. And I'm curious, how would you boys define addiction?
Jacobito, you first, please.
Okay, I'm gonna start saying that addiction is, like, for me, a dependence on something. But why? This dependence is because we have, like, benefits doing that, but just temporary benefits. Like, for example, I am with my cell phone, I can communicate with my friends. I can make a lot of things. So when I don't have it, it's like weird for me. So I have that feeling of grabbing again. Why? Because it give me, like, benefits, something like temporary things that we have that we like and that our brain like. So it gave us a dependence to it.
That's a good point.
For me.
I like that. That's a good answer. Nico?
For me, addiction is like how you feel, how your body feel about doing something, and if that something make you feel good and it make you happy, your body will ask you for more and more and more, and that will create dependence of that, like playing video games or seeing memes in Instagram, like that.
It's an interesting. So for you, it's more of there's a physical element that is addiction, correct?
Yes.
And Ryan, do you mind sharing your opinion as well? What is addiction?
I was thinking of as I often do. I like to think of things in like metaphors. So as Jacobo was talking about, especially the brain and the way that the brain works. I'm not a neuroscientist. I'm only a poet. And so the only way that I can think of is, like, I kind of think of, you know, thoughts or maybe reactions in your brain being kind of like, I've been very addicted to watching ants, you know, the little insects that walk around. And I have some aunts that live in my house. And then I have some aunts that live outside of my house also. And I like to go check on them from time to time. I like to look at them, you know. But ants are very interesting because they have, you know, these pathways, right? So they follow the same path. And in fact, the ants in Colombia are amazing because they like, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but they like start to make paths in like the grass and the green areas around like, for instance, in La Catorce the other day I was looking at these ants, right?
Yeah.
So I guess the idea here is that, look, like once you do something once, right, you have a neural connection. You have a connection in your brain that says, oh, okay, that worked. That was good. Now that I have the connection, I'll do it again. And every time you do it, it gets easier and probably feels better to a certain extent. Just like the ants, right? The ants keep going, walking down the path. It's easier to walk down the path because there's so many ants walking down the path that the path gets clear. And then before you know it, you're doing this behavior because it's just automatic, right? It's not something that you're making a decision on whether I'm going to do it or not. It's just, no, well, what do ants do? Ants walk down this path. That's my metaphor for addiction. I don't know if it added anything to the conversation, but it's fun anyway.
It makes sense. It makes sense, actually. And at some point, you know, that novelty of that path kind of disappears, right? I would imagine in terms of that metaphor. Yeah.
I suppose once the ants take all the leaves off of the tree, right? Then there's then going to that tree isn't fun anymore, and I guess they have to look for a new path. But then what happens to the path that's there? Like, it's just, you're gonna stop walking down that path now?
It's a good point. It's a very good point. I'm gonna share my opinion because addiction is something that's always it's a field that interests me because it's a field that's also grown over the years. And you know, 100 years ago, they treated it through spirituality, but today we are finding different forms of treating addiction. Now, my definition of an addiction, and I like the fact that you went with an analogy there, Ryan. I'm going to try and do the same. Donuts. You guys like donuts, right? Yeah? Well, what's up with the fact that donuts have a hole in the middle, right? I mean, the donut is like, it's missing something in the middle, right? And what you have to find is that, what is that special thing that is going to give me filling in the donut? Because I want a whole donut. I don't want that hole in the middle. I want a whole donut. So for me, in many ways, I personally believe addiction, and it comes in several types of forms. You can have phone, gambling. There's hundreds of different forms of addiction, in my opinion. But addiction is definitely, there's that hole in the donut, and it's what you're going to fill it in with, right? What are you going to fill the donut with? And I think that's because addiction is a form of disconnection from connection, right? Does that make sense to you? Disconnection from connection.
I think
yes.
So.
I want to make a clearing in what I say, because I don't think addictions are like just what you like. I can like many things, but I am not addicted to all those things.
Mm-hmm.
The fact and the special fact of or characteristic of an addiction is like the dependence and the hard like it's very difficult to get out of it, of doing it, because it's just about the feelings. And if I feel
okay. So one thing that I'm curious about is well, you guys brought this topic to the table, right?
yes.
And with you know, you're young people. Sure, you're carefree and living the good life. Why addiction? Why did you guys want to talk to us about addiction, or why do you think that it's an important topic that needs to be discussed these days?
Like, well, we decided because in quarantine, we have a lot of time to do things what we love or what we want. like play video games or sleep or don't go to English class, something like that. Uh, and we decide because we see in ourselves that we pass 3 4 hours in the screen of the computer or playing all the night video games or being like all the day in Instagram and WhatsApp, Snapchat. And Hakuito say like, hey, we can talk of this in the rat experience. Well, this is now can be a problem for us because after the quarantine, we don't know what to do because we just do all the things in our house.
Totally.
Good point.
So we're becoming addicted to being in our houses or something like that, kind of.
Yeah, well, and in your question of kids of our age, it's like we are like kids of our age. We are missing like a lot of self-control, and without that self-control, it's even more difficult to us to get like off, like to get off from an addiction. And now that we are in our houses, like Cardena said, we are finding like new like habits and like a new routine that can be like, we can become very dependent to it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's a good point that you boys are bringing up. It's like we're doing things all the time that we love. Now, here's the big thing, is that in addiction, right? And, just actually not in addiction, just living for that matter. If I go on a roller coaster once, my enjoyment of that experience is like way up here. If I go on it 20 times, my enjoyment of my experience is like down here. Right? So I guess in many ways, the things that we are doing at home at the moment are kind of in many ways, like hindering enjoyment of it because we're doing it repetitively, right? Like, for example, 1 week of virtual learning. What were you boys thinking? I'm curious. 1 week of it.
The first week of learning in virtual classes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the first week of this, honestly, I don't go to the first class. I wake up like at 8 in the morning. I take my breakfast in my bed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whatever. But
I'm very aware of that, Nico. Yeah, I'm very aware. Yeah, thank you.
But then, like, I don't know, Jacobito was the 4th week that all the teachers put out a bunch of work.
Boom, 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 boom. Work everywhere.
Yes, it was horrible. I was sleeping at 11, 12 of the night, doing homeworks. Hey, you have to do the video, you have to do the comic, you have to read this book, you have to do the biology stuff, the physics stuff. I was like, man, no more. Wait, we're in quarantine. Relax.
Yes. Mr. I don't know if you remember, Mr. David. I sent you a message 1 a.m. Mr. As you can see, the order of this message, I am totally out. I was working until here. I need to sleep. Please give me time for tomorrow.
And I said,
yeah, but the first week I felt like I was ill. Like, man, what I am doing in my house is like what I am here. Passing like from 10, 12 years in the school, 6 a.m., go, train, take a shower, train, bus, the school, and came back. We passed like in a weekend to getting these virtual classes. We all don't know what to do. And yeah, we were not like very used to it, but we start like getting more in the mind. I first didn't have like the discipline. I think I'm getting better on that because you say you are in your house, that for me, like I I thought that means like free. You are in your house, you finish school, or you are in vacation. But quarantine is not vacation,
Yeah.
unfortunately, and we have to get used to it, like in a very hard way that is in class.
All right. All right.
Interesting thoughts.
And I'm curious, you know, because returning back to the topic of the day, right, on addiction, do you guys think that there is a rise of addiction during quarantine, and are those addictions positive, or do you think that they're negative? Just in
Both.
general, yeah.
I think
So-
there we have to make a like sub question here. Are they positive addictions?
Right. Do positive addictions exist?
Yes, that's like the
Yeah.
point.
I was
Well,
also thinking of the same. Like,
for
for
your-
instance, an addiction to exercise seems
I think
positive.
good. Positive,
Right.
yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
There is this common saying that all in excess is bad. So I don't know really if the word addiction can have like a positive side. Well, maybe I can get addicted to school, but what happened? My social abilities, maybe my free time, like all that things get affected.
Mhm.
So, well,
So-
teacher, for your question, well, I think that in this quarantine, there are positive and bad points of view of what is happening with addictions, because the people that were in all time in the school and then they go home and sleep, now they can have more time for do exercise or read or paint something, like have time for them. But bad because people that have so much time can be in video games or playing music all day and that stuff. And what
Yeah.
Jacobito says, like, um, well, yes, addiction to have like a good way, but it depends how you determine that for addiction. Because for me, reading English, I never read English, but for you, teacher, it's like a common thing. So from my point of view, you are addict to written English. So, yes, 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 yes.
Maybe,
Oh.
maybe.
Oh man, that cracks me up. I'm sorry. I just had to burst out laughing right there. Oh my goodness, I'm
Interesting.
addicted to reading. Oh my goodness, yeah. You know, going back to what Jacobo said, fine, I'm addicted to reading, and that's okay. But guess what? Going back from what Jacobo said, some addictions can be positive, but they'll have negative consequences, right?
Yeah, like there's a balance.
You
Yeah,
don't learn another language.
But being addicted to reading, in my opinion, is a good thing. Why? What is the consequence of reading? I'm killing time, and I'm living in quarantine. That sounds like an absolute dream right there, I'll tell you that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
But your eyes, teacher, you're cleaning your eyes too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, depending on the conditions, you can see like problems, but I mean, there are better addictions than others. You can compare like a drug addict to a reading addict. Sorry. It's like,
Yeah, sorry, Ryan, it felt like you were going to say something. Go for it.
Well, yeah, I guess inherently, I mean, you know, one is probably more destructive than the other,
Yes.
right?
yes.
So I guess that's the way that you could kind of judge it. But I guess going back to something that Jacobo said a little while ago is that, you know, everything in excess is bad, and it seems like an addiction, I think, by definition, then should also include. Well, I don't know. That maybe I'm jumping ahead of myself. Does addiction always include excess? Because that's another kind of dimension to this question. I mean, what if you could be addicted to something, but not do it excessively, but still be addicted, would that be, I don't know, would that be as negative?
I might take this question here, because I like what you propose. Now, you're right. Addiction doesn't need to be in excess, but what it does need for something to be qualified as an addiction is something called the cognitive dissonance. Now, you might say, what is a cognitive dissonance, right? That's kind of when you have a shift of your attitude, your behavior, and it's like you act like a new person. And that could be you act like a new person when you play video games. You act like a different person when you have a Coca-Cola. You act like a different person when you read, where you just don't talk to people. But it's like, it's a shift in your behavior and your attitude from what is the norm. So you're right. In my opinion, I think you're right. You don't need to do things in excess. Like, they have that old phrase, an alcoholic can have one drink every year, he's still an alcoholic, right? Why? Because that one drink, cognitive dissonance will happen. With that one drink, he will change who he is instantaneously. He'll be a new individual. So, I don't know, in many ways, you have to be a different person in order to be, you have to change who you are, right? In order to be classified. And in many ways, I think we're all changing, right? We're always changing. So would you boys maybe think that everyone in this world is an addict? Do you guys think that?
I think that yes.
Yes.
Yeah? Yeah. Everyone has something that they hold on to, right? That one vice, if you will, the one thing that makes them feel different. That one thing that makes them feel like, ooh, I'm a new man today, right?
Yeah, there is a the common belief that there are only few addictions, like to certain substances, the alcohol, maybe gambling, but they are those like the most harmful. Just suppose, but in the reality, there are addictions to many things, and maybe we are addicted, or I think we are all addicted to something, and sometimes we don't even realize.
Like you and your Rubik cube.
Yeah, I was gonna say, are you addicted to the
Yeah, sorry. Yes, but it's like the principal symptom of an addict is like total not acceptation, like they deny that they are addicts.
Yeah.
That's like the first stage or the first step for you to improve. Accept that you have a problem with that. And that's the hardest step.
Oh, dude, you've said the key words of accept that. I accept that I have a problem, honestly, and that is the most difficult words to come out of an addict's mouth. I mean, they hold interventions for people just to say, I accept I have a problem. They hold interventions for people to say those 6 words, and yet they struggle, right? It's because you hold on to it, because it makes you feel comfortable. It secures you, and you have this like necessity, and you don't want to break that necessity in many ways, right?
So teacher, you are addicted to the coffee.
Yeah, he bring a good point here, because the coffee have a special substance called what? Caffeine. And what does the caffeine do? Make you more active. So as you are more active, you can see that you are like, you can, there is very common people drinking coffee in the night for lasting more, working, and their brain become addicted to this because this substance.
Yep. And when we don't drink coffee, it'll also start to cause negative.
Yeah, like a down,
effects.
a breakdown.
You get headaches too. Like some people, I've never experienced that, but some people get headaches when they don't drink coffee. So I mean, a lot of people, but it's interesting, and I like that you brought that up because it's an addiction that is widely accepted, right? And even in a lot of ways promoted.
Now it's like, oh, I drink coffee, I'm cool.
Yeah.
And being productive is, and that's I guess maybe I don't know, maybe where we want to go with this conversation is that in a certain way societies exist as a kind of, I'm gonna bring back my metaphor to the ants, right? Okay, ants are a society that has certain accepted addictions. It is accepted that ants are addicted to going up that tree, getting the leaf off of the tree, bringing it down into the hole, and walking along that path, right? It is accepted that we are addicted to being connected all the time, to working really, really hard, to making a lot of money. All of those are addictions that are actually, like promoted in our culture or in our society. They are addictions that the structure of society wants us to have. It's considered to be a good thing if you are addicted to work or whatever it might be, right? And so I think that's a key aspect.
Going back to society, it's like we have over 130 countries in the world. Every society is going to look at it a little bit different. Now, here's a funny museum that exists in Myanmar. Myanmar has a museum of the anti-drug museum. It's their society not tolerating that at all. And then you have other countries like Portugal, who's like, oh, no, decriminalized all drugs because we believe that it treats addiction. So, it's an interesting sociological element as well. Definitely. Yeah.
Yes.
So I have a question for you, for the three. Like, what is your addiction? And coffee don't value for you, Pascual. What do you think about coffee?
Coffee, right? Yeah. Coffee is a vice of mine. I remember my first sippers of coffee back when I was 13, and here I sit at 27 or 10,000 days and about 12,000 cups of coffee later. So, you caught me red-handed right there. Yeah, coffee. I'm sorry, but I don't know. I just grew up with café con leche, Yeah.
Yeah, the day in school that you are not with the giant mug on the coffee on top.
And then you guys see me before class with you guys, and I'm just like, go. All right, woo, let's go for class.
And I'm David. Yeah, man. That's.
Oh man, yeah, no, I know.
Yeah, I would say that I share in the addiction of coffee. I got hooked much later in life. I didn't drink coffee until I was in my 20s, so I guess that's not a bad thing. I don't know. In gringo culture, you guys know that we have this this belief that that drinking coffee when you're young will make you like stop growing. So you'll be short if you drink coffee when you're young. I'm almost sure that it has no basis in reality. I think it's just one of those lies that we tell people.
Of the moms.
Yeah, like, it just works, right? Like, because I don't know. But then again, like maybe also I don't know, maybe young people should not be blasting their brains with a lot of chemicals. I can't help but feel like it's probably not a great idea that you start to consume a lot of caffeine when you're young. I don't see how it could be beneficial in the long run. I don't know, man. Maybe if you get really productive and do a lot of great things, but I don't see it as being a great idea. So it's one of those lies that I like, except I say, nah, let's just keep lying. Let's just keep telling people that if they drink coffee when they're young, they won't grow. I think it's a good idea.
I like that.
Jacoito, your addiction.
Really, to the screens. I don't know. I wanted to bring this here, but I was looking like for the most common addictions, and I see that I am part of one of them, and it's the cell phone. There is a study, let me see, realized in 2012, saying that 9 of each 10 students in universities have a syndrome. What is the syndrome? Is feeling that their phones vibrate. Yeah, like zzz, zzz, and when they are looking, they don't have anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I have that too. Yeah.
I don't know if that's happened to you.
Yeah.
Then I don't, like 2 days ago, I was downstairs with my cell phone app, and I start like hearing my ringtone in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's like more weird, but it happened to me.
It makes
and
sense.
It's like that. When you leave the dependence, your brain is so used that it starts making hallucinations.
It's a really good point. I really
So
like
that's.
Huh.
In fact, I almost wonder that. Okay, going again. Now I'm going to go back to what we were talking about. Society, basically, a society in one way or another is then shaped by its addictions, and addictions are controlled in some way by laws, for example, and things like that. So I'm wondering who is controlling our addictions, especially the one that you mentioned, especially the one about screens. And then the two big questions, sorry, I don't know, are they two? The one, at least the one really big question for me is always, who benefits? Who benefits? Because like you said, not if 90% of college students suffer this syndrome that you're talking about. I personally suffer it. I feel it often. I'm sure that there are many people that we all know that also suffer from this syndrome. In other words, our problems, our addictions are being programmed by somebody. In this case, the people who develop cell phone softwares and things like this, right? Who's benefiting from that? Like, why are they allowing this to happen? Because it doesn't seem like it's benefiting me. I don't think that constantly thinking that my phone is communicating with me is a good thing for me, but somebody is benefiting, right?
That's a good, yeah. No, I definitely, here's the crazy thing. I'm pretty convinced that big corporations, they want us to stay addicted to things. They're not going to be in business if we're not addicted to things, right? Addiction in terms of corporations is necessary. And, for example, me looking at my phone all the time, I'm going to go back to my definition of addiction, right? It is to fill a void in who we are, right? And in many ways, sometimes companies, they look at voids in society, not in individuals, but in society. And they say, there's a void to be filled here. There's money to be made. The big corporation, it's not that they're profiting off that, but they're kind of, like looking for the void to fill and make money off of. And they look on it on a macro level, not on a micro, but on a macro level, I guess. Right?
So they're not looking at, is it good for the individual? Is it good for Ryan Cross that he's always nervously looking at his phone. That's not important.
You know,
it is good like for them.
It's good for them. Right.
Yeah, man, more people addicted, more dependence, more sellings.
Exactly.
Who benefits? The sellers.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very good point that you bring up there.
But
on this
there are
addiction.
not like common addictions. O sea, I mean, they are very common, but they are not commonly mentioned.
Yeah, true. I'm gonna propose another question to you guys, you know, because we've talked a lot about the element of addiction. But what form of treatment do you guys believe exists for whatever addiction that may exist? You know, there's several people have different ideas on this topic, but I'd like to hear from the panel. What do you guys think is the best form of treatment per se for addiction?
Well, it depends the addiction because, for example, if someone is addicted to do exercise, it is different the way it can be managed, like someone that is addicted to video games.
True.
Because what the one is addicted to the exercise need is to stay in home doing anything, maybe playing video games. And the one that is addicted to the video games need to go and do exercise or pass time outside doing other things. So it depends like the type of addict you are and what you addict to.
I think there is a general, it's like depending on the addiction, but first of all, for all, the acceptation. You have seen, I think that there is very commonly seen that there are these corporations like anonymous alcoholics. I think it's called like that. Like it's a circle of chairs. So you say, "Hello, my name is Jacobo," and the others, "Hi, Jacobo." And the first thing that you need to say, "Hello, I am Jacobo, and I am alcoholic." Saying and stating that you are addicted.
You know, you bring up a good point. Support groups, right?
Yes.
And this is me, you know, going back to my definition, right? My definition was addiction is a form of disconnecting from things in order to connect to a substance. The antidote, in my opinion, of addiction, boys, is connection. It's communication. It's talking, it's open. Why do you think it is that you have to go to those meetings, Jacobo, and say, I am an alcoholic when you go to well, I don't, but you know, if people go to those meetings, why? Because you identify as part of the group, right? You identify.
Yeah, you like surround of people that have the same problem
and immediately by saying those three words, you are connecting with everyone there. It is like,
it depends.
It is the key to turn the lock and the door and you are in, right? Those three words put a connection instantly because everyone else who's in that room will identify with those words, right? So that's why in my opinion, treatment is connection, communication, connecting with people. Sorry, Nicolas, go for it.
Thank you, teacher. But in that case, it will be different because I can be addict, I don't know, like to go all days and race my bike all days, 2 hours. But I meet with other ones that do the same. I say to him, like, man, I am addict to the bike and don't change anything because they're like, okay, me too.
Yeah, but
and they continue.
Two people like to go bicycle riding. One person goes in that direction, the other person goes in that direction. And they go for 6 hours every single day. Now, if they do it together, there's a sense of connection. And there's a sense of not feeling lonely with just a bike on the road for exercise, right? That's why I go back to that idea. Addiction is disconnecting from, you know, from people. And it's turning to a connection with an activity, a substance, whatever that may be. I don't know. Ryan,
Yes,
what's
yes.
your take? What's your take on this?
Yeah, I think I'm in line with Jacobo in acceptance is the most important thing. In fact, I come from a family with difficulty with addictions, multiple types of addictions, and so I've been close to these types of processes my whole life. And you brought up Alcoholics Anonymous. One of the most beautiful things in Alcoholics Anonymous is the prayer. Alcoholics Anonymous is not
the Serenity Prayer.
Religion. Yep.
Yeah.
And it goes a little something like this. It says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can,
and the wisdom
to know the difference.
Yeah.
So first of all, accepting that there are just certain things that are out of your control, that are bigger than you, and that can take a lot of different forms, right? You can understand that in lots of different ways. You could understand it as, again, as God. Maybe it's just a divine way that the world works, or maybe it's my brain chemistry. I mean, there's not a lot of people who can just control their brain chemistry, right? Whatever it might be that you can't control. First of all, if you're fighting against it the whole time, well, you're just losing a lot of energy, because if you can't control it, you can't control it, right? So it's important to understand, first of all, what you can't control and accept that. And then to start to see what you can control, right? Well, maybe I can't control that I love that thing, but maybe I can control how often I'm exposed to it. And by doing that, then I think it's the only, I mean, it's a huge problem. I mean, treating addiction is definitely, well, okay, I don't want to say that it's not a science. I suppose that it is a science, but it's not an exact science. It's not something that you can just say, oh, this has a cure. It's easy. Boom, you're done.
All across the world, they treat it differently.
Yeah. But some of the most effective ways are, Alcoholics Anonymous is literally the most effective way. And it's not even that effective. Like, its success rate is unfortunately very low. But it's higher than just about any other method. So that's sort of the, again, like, one of the first steps there is to first of all accept that I'm an addict, right? Accept that I am addicted, and that I can't change that, right? That's not going to stop tomorrow, and tomorrow I'm not an addict anymore. No, that'll never happen, right? And literally they say an addict today will be an addict for the rest of their life. You're always an addict.
Yeah.
But what changes is how you deal with that. And I think it's interesting and it's important to understand. So addiction, as far as the treatment goes, it's difficult for everyone. That's why it's an addiction.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I think that, like, the treat and the I agree with Ryan in the point that addictions cannot be, like, cut off from one day to another. It's like you are addicted, and when you recognize that the problem that you have is very, like, serious, and it's very long, and maybe for all your life you are gonna be addicted to that. I think, like, a solution, or like the goal in these addictions supporting centers is to reduce the addiction. When you see an addicted to smoke, they smoke 3 packages a day. The addiction support groups start with plans, reducing little by little, like by stages. and you are not cutting off, and your brain is not wanting again the thing because you are reducing it. You are still having it, but in a minor proportion that can make you less damaged and can make you less dependent than you were.
That's a good point. Good point. You know, guys, I have to say I've really enjoyed today's podcast. It's really been, you know, I mean, we talked about it in today's world, but we also just talked about the general theme of it. And I'm pretty sure we can continue this forever and ever. But as Ryan, myself, and I'm sure you guys as well have some work to do. Ryan, you want to take us out?
All right. Well, yeah, gentlemen, thank you again for bringing the topic.
Yeah, seriously, guys, you brought the topic. Thank you.
Very interesting conversation.
Yeah, very interesting.
Thank you, teachers.
All of you out there watching, when you want to bring a topic to our table, we are open, right? Yeah.
You will get 100.
You'll get 100. So, all you rad people out there, we'll see you on the next rad podcast. Until then, have a beautiful day.
Peace and love. Peace and love.